Hi, Scott Orland with CINEMA-Magazin. The new TV series you've been waiting for, Star Wars Resistance, and the people responsible for it, Athena Portillo, Justin Ridge, Brandon Auman. First of all, congratulations. What I find really fascinating about this concept is normally for an audience, as we're used to the Star Wars legacy, it usually starts out with something doom as we start. And now there's like a placid feeling as we meet these characters. Things seem to be okay. We know that's not necessarily going to be the case. Talk a little bit about this new kind of introduction.
This gave us the opportunity to talk about stories leading up to The Force Awakens. So we left off with Return of the Jedi, which happened 30 years ago. And then this gave us an opportunity to talk about how the First Order became, how the Resistance became, how the relationship between Leia Organa and Poe became. It was so great to get to explore that.
Yeah. How advantageous is it to tell it through the device of animation?
Oh, I mean, animation, there's so many creative liberties, we can take designing the worlds, the characters, making these worlds feel lived in and, something that audiences would want to, revisit and see these characters, act out the stories in. It's very exciting with animation to design the world and really, tell these exciting stories.
And again, normally time was long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, and we're kind of in like a very dark world. But here it almost seems like you're hovering over the ocean. I mean, things look very placid and kind of cool. Talk a little bit about the environment where you're setting this story.
It takes place on a water planet called Castellon, which is at the very edge of the galaxy in the western regions. So basically, we're at the edge of the unknown regions, which is where the First Order has been banished to. So they're out there in kind of wild space, where they, so that happened after Return of the Jedi. The remnants of the Empire essentially became the First Order. So they're stuck out there, but they're building an army secretly. And General Leia Organa gets a sense of this through her spies and just through, her knowledge of the Empire. So she starts forming the Resistance, which takes place a few years before our series. So she's already recruited Poe. So Poe recruits our character Kaz to spy on the First Order, see what's going on. Something's being developed out there, something ominous, something dangerous. And so Kaz is ultimately tasked to find out what that is.
You have, I think there's 5 fighters that are kind of like the central core of who these people are, and literally you've hit all the different archetypes, different looks. I mean, some are human in tone, some are more alien in tone. Talk a little bit about how you decided what these characters would be.
So in our writers' conferences, we come up with the stories, but we also come up with an idea of what species, what we want the characters to look like, what their outfits are, the colors of their outfits, should they be matching the vehicles. So what was great about this show is we had an opportunity to develop it about a year in advance before we even walked into our first writers' conference. So it was awesome to be able to come in with a binder full of ideas and designs already, like an asset library to present to the writers to come up with the story. So I thought that was great.
Because it's fascinating. We talk about Star Wars like it really existed in a sense that we just opened the history book and this was the story of 1812 and this is the 100 Years' War.
Yeah.
It's not. This is whatever you want to make it to be. Mm-hmm. So talk a little bit about how much do you work with Lucasfilm in the sense of they must have some type of Bible of who certain characters are and how much the elasticity of what we're allowed to create.
Yeah, I think it's very important for us that this show fit in the canon of Star Wars. We didn't want to step on the toes of any other stories, that are happening, and we wanted to feel that it fits snugly, 6 months before The Force Awakens. The fact that Poe and BB-8 and Captain Phasma are involved, obviously we wanted to have them in there, but we wanted to make sure that things organically fit in the story that we're telling, which mostly focuses on Team Fireball and Kazuna Xiono, our main hero.
For any good protagonist that we want to kind of root behind and have empathy towards, you have to have a good antagonist. So are the antagonists that we're eventually going to see as the series develops people that are in our lexicon, people we know, or have you created new ones?
Well, both actually. We've got we were saying Captain Phasma, who's one of the big bads. And then we have another character that we've sort of seen, we sort of teased in some of our trailers. We call him the Red Baron. And he's Major Von Reg, and he's they're basically their ace, their hotshot pilot, who can rival any Resistance pilot. He's one of the best pilots around. So It's one of the most fun aspects of working on the show is that we get to create new villains. I mean, that's, the villains are so cool, and just the First Order aesthetic is so neat that, like, how could we not create new characters to go along with this lexicon?
One of the aspects, too, I think, of Star Wars that people don't want to necessarily overly pick apart, but is the spirituality of it. There's whether it's religious overtone or the moral landscape in which it presides. Can you talk a little bit about, in your version of Star Wars, what kind of life lessons are being kind of put out there for us?
I feel like our show is very family-based. I feel like a lot of the Star Wars films are also around family, whether it's a bloodline family or families that you meet as friends that become family, I guess you could say. So I love the fact that, like Kaz, as an example, he came on board. He was all nervous. He was making some mistakes. It's very human to all of us. And then all of a sudden, he becomes very close to Team Fireball, and that becomes his new family.
And I'm fascinated, too, because of technology nowadays. I mean, the animation sometimes used to be very rudimentary but you have so many tools at your disposal. And when one looks at the filmography of Star Wars, the advancement, the technology that was used in that, how much crossover was there? How much are fans, when they see this, it's not going to be just basic animation, you're taking it, into light speed?
No matter what the project is, we really want to try and push the boundaries and raise the bar as high as we can quality-wise. So, for us, even though it's a more stylized show, we wanted to really make this feel cinematic and lived in and really feel like Star Wars, And one of the things that's exciting for me for the show is that you have some old tech, like you have remnants of the old movies, but then you also have the new tech, which you've seen in the new movies. So it's kind of a cool hybrid in this transitional period, where you get some things that are familiar, but then you get some things that are new.
You place things in these series where it's going to foreshadow elements of these other films, whether it be Force Awakens or The Last Jedi, that people are going to be looking for.
Safe to say, there's some
hidden. There's
Easter
some
eggs.
things as you watch in season 1, you'll be like, oh wow, that's cool. That's it's very old school. Or like you'll see something like in the background. Maybe you have to look hard in Tora's room,
Yes.
and you'll see some cool little Easter eggs. And just if you watch like almost every episode, there's something that you're gonna like. Oh, that's cool. That's neat. Oh, that's from this thing. Or we tried to, but it's also not forced. It's a very organic thing. Like, that's important. Like, not just to have it there just for fan service. It kind of also helps define characters or define situations. You look at Aunt Z's cantina and you'll see some things in the background, but it's all very lived in. It's all very a part of the Colossus or whatever it is that we're showing.
Makes sense within that world.
I cannot thank each and every one of you for being here. We look forward to seeing the rest of the show. And this is Scout Orland. Until next time.
Thank you so much.
And scene.